Hi,
pretend that never
Mike.
happens.
Hi, Mike.
Hey,
It's like
Ayla,
we've
how are
never
you?
met ever in our lives. I'm so sorry. I have met Mike multiple times in person. Um, anyway, hi, Mike. How are you?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Okay, so Mike, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Who are you? Why are you here? Why did I invite you specifically?
A good question. Um, yeah, I can intro real quick. Hi, everybody. Excited to share some space with you today. My name is Mike Knox. I, amongst some other things, am the founder of a company called Mattering Lab. Through Mattering Lab, I help folks mostly within the video game industry to do leadership and team development work. So studios will bring me in, particularly studios that don't have their own internal teams to do learning and development type work. Will bring me in, and I will help train up leaders, coach leaders, bring teams together for various reasons. Kind of whatever the challenges they're facing, we'll customize something that will help them to overcome those challenges. Does that work?
Yes, I think
Cool.
that works. Mike is great. If you are on LinkedIn, you might know him from his Chalk for Chalk, which is he draws chalk art like on a driveway in order to benefit Chalk, which is CHOC, which is Children's Hospital of Orange County. And he does that like year. Do you do it year round? It seems like you're always doing it
Not year round, but it's a lot of the
a
year.
lot of the
Yeah.
year.
It's
And
like five months out of the year, maybe.
you most recently somehow convinced Amir Satvat to take up the reins of Chalk as well. So
Yeah, that was
congratulations.
super easy,
Oh,
actually. He said yes immediately.
he's great. I love him. Um, something that I think I haven't said publicly. Well, I haven't said publicly at all, but I also haven't said to any of you here. And there's no reason to not say it. It hasn't happened yet. But the partner program, is actually also going to be part of Amir's resources very soon. We are working on it now, and it will be added in a few months. I'm giving it a few months because we just had that huge influx from that LinkedIn post that I just did, and I'm super booked. And then I'm moving to New Zealand next month, so I will be out of commission for a little bit. But hopefully, we will see some more awesome stuff going on with Amir's resources and what that does for us. But anyway, so I met Mike somehow on. Do you remember LinkedIn, or did I meet you for the first time at GamesBeat?
I think we met for the first time at GameSpeed and then connected on
I
LinkedIn,
feel like I
I
knew
want to
who you
say.
were before then. I don't remember. Um, anyway, Mike is fantastic, and I'm very excited to have him on. He helped me learn what type of leader I am, and I don't remember what it was, but I enjoyed it at the time. I'm sure I have the documents somewhere, or I could log into the website. But I think leadership is really important. One of the reasons Cave Bear has been kind of praised, or one of the things Cave Bear has been praised on, is the fact that we were able to keep our team active and interested in the project despite being volunteer and not paying them for over a year consistently every week. And I like to think that that's one of my strengths, and I think it mostly comes from my background as a teacher, and I can talk a little bit about that. But I think it also comes from what Mike and I were just talking about, the values that Cave Bear has as a studio, our studio pillars. We'll talk about that as well. But one thing I loved about Mike when we first met was that we share similar values of what leadership is about, and how to do it, and sustainably and equitably, inclusively, all that fun stuff. And so while my famous line is, I'm never going to tell you how to run your business, I do want to educate and impart what I think are good values and good practices. And this is one of the ways I'm going to do that. So Mike is going to have the majority of the floor, but I'll be here as well. And please, again, ask questions in the chat, or just chat in the chat. Mike, do you know where to see the chat? But I will also act as a producer and help you filter
I was
questions and
just
stuff.
about to ask that.
I think it is a little chat bubble on the top right.
Ah, I see it.
Okay, perfect. So you don't let it distract you. I will be here to filter the questions through and stuff too. But now you can see it, so it's there for you. and then I'll just
Okay, let's see.
let you go for it whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I am currently getting a messages failed to load.
Well, in that case, I'm here.
So cool. Yeah, you can let me know.
Yeah.
It's definitely been a long time since I did any kind of facilitation on Discord, at least a couple of years, and so I don't recall how interactive can we be today. Can folks come
So
on and talk,
the
or
chat
is that
is going to be the main kind of source of
cool?
interaction. However, if you would like, we can, the people below, they can do it now, but we can choose to ignore them. But the people below can raise their hand and then we can invite them onto the stage where we are right now. And they can talk verbally, put on their camera if they would like. But if we don't want that, or, they don't want to do that, that's where the chat comes in.
Cool.
But at any point, if you want, you can be like, hey, if anyone has questions, please raise their hands, and then I can facilitate bringing them onto stage for you.
Perfect. Well, I always love to hear other voices. So if it's possible, folks, I would love to see your hands up as we work our way through this.
Mentally
Um,
prepare now to interact and participate, folks.
yeah, and honestly, that's because I think that the greatest knowledge comes from the group and the community, right? And so I'm here to provide a little bit of a guidance, to maybe ask some questions that might be interesting, to provide some of what I have seen in the world as best practices. But you all have a ton of knowledge to bring to the table, so I'd love to hear those voices. I don't think the chat is going to end up working out for me. I'm
Bummer.
just failing every time. So
I'll be
especially
here.
helpful if you
Yeah, I'll
can
let you know.
notify me anything that's going on there. I'm also realizing I'm just going to make sure that my daughter knows she's in the background and can be seen. You good with that? All right, thumbs up. Cool. Just checking. Um, all right. Well, I'm really excited. So I asked Ayla, what was it? I mean, probably a couple of months ago, I said, hey, I'd really
Yeah, it
love
was
to be able to
early.
do more for the community. And I do spend a fair amount of time talking with leaders and teams in the industry, and have learned a little bit along the way. um, and would love to share some of that, and be able to help support more this incredible community that you all have built together. So thank you, Ayla, for allowing me to do that. It's much appreciated. Um, and I'm going to do my best today. I also, just so folks know, I like to be pretty flexible with facilitation. I like to figure out kind of in the moment what's the important conversation that we need to have, and then have that conversation. So I've got a few topics planned for today. Uh, it's a loose plan. We can veer away from it. We can focus on just one. We can whatever ends up making the most sense. So I'm gonna actually start by asking you all, and then maybe if you can kind of share in the chat, and then Ayla, you'll have to let me know how it's looking. Uh, the fourth, I came prepared to engage with you all on four different topics. The first was, as folks who are running indie studios or founding indie studios and whatnot, um, really, there are a handful of things that when you're in that startup phase can both be incredibly helpful to talk about, but also incredibly difficult to prioritize. Because there are so many things to do, right? And often fires to put out, and just so many ways to spend your time. And so I will share some of those with you today. My expertise and professional career are all spent in the people development space. So how do we work more effectively together? Why that's been particularly impactful, I would say, in this industry is that, this is somewhat true of lots of industries, or maybe even all industries, but it's especially true here. I have found is that a lot of times folks end up in roles where maybe they're leading people for the first time, and they've never been given any kind of support, training, anything to help them do that, right? We have a lot of like, oh, you're an incredible artist, you're an amazing engineer, let's put you in charge of a team, and then let's also not give you anything. Like, we'll just assume that somehow this completely different skill set comes naturally. And so I'm trying to fill in that gap a little bit. How do we provide folks with the support and skills that they need to make sure that you can be successful? When you're leading people, which is really, really hard, even when folks are on the same page, it's really hard because we're all different. How can we get the best out of one another? How can we create spaces where everybody feels safe and is able to, be fully included and just do their best work. Um, so the four topics. Sorry, I'm going to come back around to that. The first one that I had in mind was clarifying values and culture. So what really identifying who are we, what are we all about, how would you describe to somebody who maybe wants to join your team what that means? What is the team, right? Um, a very good definition of culture that I read recently, and I'll have to attribute it later because I forgot to write down who said it, but that culture is patterns of behavior over time, right? And so the first part of this conversation could revolve around that. We could talk about values. How do you establish values? How do you live your values? And how does that define who you are and who you want to be? So that's a possibility. And I asked Ayla to stay ready to talk about Cave Bear and their values in that instance. The second item is looking at psychological safety and how do we create spaces that feel really safe, that folks can show up as their authentic selves, can contribute all that they can contribute, can challenge things, can make mistakes, all of the things that happen in spaces, right? And not have to worry or be fearful of doing that. Um, Psychological safety, just folks may already be familiar with this, but Google did a really famous study. It's been a while now. I think it's like 13-year-old study, but it's sort of served as the gold standard, looking at their highest performing teams to try to figure out what is it that they're doing differently, that's really setting them up for that success. And they found that the number one qualification for a successful, productive team was a team that's psychologically safe. So that's an item that we can explore, and I can share that with you. Um, I also have some resources that I can send. And Ayla, how do if I can't access the chat,
Yeah, you might
what's a good
actually
way
have
to
to send them
share?
to me,
I'm going to do
or
that right
whatever.
now.
Yeah, and then I will hopefully try to upload them here. I will also, once the recording is done, which hopefully I should be able to upload it to YouTube today pretty quickly. Um, I will send out an email to all the partners with a link to the recording, as well as attach anything that Mike gives me.
Awesome.
This, you may have noticed that this stage is in the partner category, which means it is private to the partner. So anyone in here is part of a partner. And the same will be for the YouTube video. I will keep it unlisted and only send the links out to the partners so that you guys can, hopefully feel psychologically safe to ask questions and, participate in ways that you might not be able to do publicly. But yeah, where are you
Perfect.
sending those to
Okay.
me? LinkedIn?
Um, yeah, I'll drop them in LinkedIn.
Okay.
Sorry, my desktop is a little bit full right now, so let me find you. So I'll keep talking while I do that, even though I'm really bad at multitasking. Um, so those are two of the potential topics, and we may talk about all of them if time permits. The next item, Ayla thought that this would be of particular interest potentially, is team member engagement. How do you keep your team engaged and motivated, recognizing that different things motivate different people? And so I can share with you some sort of industry best practices around engagement, and also we can maybe have a conversation about what that looks like. Um, and then the third and final item is how do you really leverage individual strengths and identify strengths on the team and identify ways of working together. When I mentioned, it's hard to invest the time and energy in some things. One of the most important conversations I think you can have that we almost always skip over is how are we going to work together? We tend to do the what are we working on and how are we going to solve a problem and what are we going to get done and focus on the outcome. And we tend not to just have a frank conversation about how do you operate and how do I operate and how is that maybe different and how do we find good ways to come together and become something even more than the sum of our parts, right? And when we don't have that conversation, we often set ourselves up to have lots of miscommunications, folks being frustrated because the thing that motivates you is very different than the thing that motivates me. And so I'm mad at you for it or whatever else because I'm not seeing what I hope to see. So some really simple kind of tools and tricks that we can get at to open up that conversation. That's something that we can cover today.
And I can
So
talk
I,
for a second while you
yeah,
send me
please.
those files.
Yeah, thank you.
So I would like to know in chat who we have here. Mia, we have like an order. So Mia said that they prefer to hear engagement and how to work together over the others in terms of priority, if that's what's being asked. That's just what they said. We don't. If you have a plan, we can stick to that plan. Again, this will all be recorded, so all that fun stuff. But also, what I was going to say is, I would love to know what kind of leaders are you guys in terms of experience? Are you someone who's doing this for the first time, like I was? Or have you been in the games industry for a while, leading teams for a while? Have you founded a studio before, or is this the first time? How comfortable do you feel with leadership in general? I know that we have, very thankfully, a very diverse range of founders and teams here, from people like me who are juniors doing this for the first time, and then all the way up to people who've been in the industry for 20 plus years, or three-time founders, stuff like that. The stuff that we're going to talk about, some stuff might be more relevant to the newer founders, some stuff might be more relevant to the older ones. But overall, hopefully everyone will be able to learn something from this. But I do think as well, I'm very thankful to have my background in education. Old as in like you've been around the industry for a while. I've been here like 2 years. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we have people who 10 plus years in the industry, but first time studio founder of a 3-year-old studio, a little bit of experience, couple years, but mostly pretend I know what I'm doing, and it ends up working out most of the time. No formal education. That's fair. So, lone wolf who wants to be a leader, but it's hard to connect with people when your vision isn't unified behind your idea. Interesting. Led and supervised a team for 5+ years, previous job. This is the first time leading an indie studio. Been in games for a bit. First time studio founder, but was a team leader and manager in other industries. Another first time founder, not a first time leader. Been a dev for over 10 years in various industries. Been in the industry for a while. Second studio, technically. Also a game dev teacher. Yeah, so teachers, I feel like teachers have a unique experience, because we know, or at least I hope that we know, or we were taught how to meet people where they're at, talk about things in the way that they know how to talk about, like you were just saying, Mike, about some people learn differently or communicate differently, and teachers, at least that's my experience, is I was able to do that well because of my teaching experience. During college, I led some people, but my studio is new. Been doing the indie thing for over 20 years. 56-year-old game industry rookie, 30-year entrepreneur and CEO, and then a first-time founder, but was a project manager. Done leadership positions in school and clubs and college and stuff. Cool. Yeah, so variety, like I thought.
Yeah, definite variety in the room, so that's great and wonderful, and everybody here, regardless of your experience, has the potential, right, to be that excellent leader in the ways that are right for you, and that's one thing I really want to emphasize, is that there's not one way to do this, right? And like Ayla, you spoke to being that educator who is probably really used to kind of meeting people where they're at, understanding who they are, and drawing strengths out of them, and having those conversations. We're going to approach it differently depending on who we are, and that's totally okay. So I didn't explicitly ask the question, but I was kind of getting at, hey, how would you all like to prioritize these topics? What's most important to you? So I think so far I've heard that the engagement piece, and then if I'm not mistaken, maybe
How to
that
work
last bit
together.
about working together and leveraging strengths
Can you
maybe makes
list the
sense.
4 for me really quickly again?
Yes. So values and culture is the first one. Psychological safety is the second one. The third one, um, I should be able to just rattle these off. Engagement, so engaging your team, motivating your team, and the fourth one is working together and understanding each other's strengths and styles.
Okay, we have a second for the engagement and how to work together. I've also got your files. I have uploaded them to chat, so
Cool.
they're there. Just let us know when we need them. Um, Values and engagement for this person. Psychological safety and engagement are another person's top two, and then a third. So engagement and how to work together are our top priorities, and then the psychological safety and values are less said.
Perfect. Why don't we start with engagement in that case, since it felt like that one was the clear front runner to me. So we can start with that. Let me give you a heads up of what's in that attachment.
Oh yeah.
So there's one that's called "The Best of Us," which you can ignore for now. We'll get to that next. The other one, I think I called it Cave Bear Games Talk
Yeah.
with the date. So if you look at that one, just a heads up, under the who we are at the top, that was like the culture and values. I included that game company there only because they're very top of mind with me. I'm working with them in a couple of weeks, and so I've been thinking a lot about them, and because they make
You're
excellent
working with
games
that
that
game company? That's fantastic. I do
I'm
love
so
them. They
excited.
have fantastic values.
Right, and I think it's a great example of a company that like you can see it in their work, right, and in their output, in the things they create. You can kind of get a feel for what their values are before you ever even read their values,
Hmm.
which I love. So I thought they had a good example of values, and then really identifying what are some behaviors related to those values. So that's why they're there, in case folks are wondering about that. And I am very excited to work with not the entire team right now, but
That's super
some of their
exciting.
team members. Um, okay, psychological safety. You can see again. We're not going to talk about it, but just running through the sheet for you. This is something that what if we don't get to this today, this can still serve as a resource. That is what you can see there. First, Amy Edmondson is kind of the biggest name in psychological safety, and you can see a definition of psychological safety there: a shared belief within a team that it's safe to speak up, ask questions, take risks, and make mistakes without fear of negative consequences. That's a big deal. It sounds maybe simple, but it's very not. And creating those spaces takes a lot of intention. So I pulled this from it's called Leader Factor, 4 stages of psychological safety. What you see there is the different stages, and then just 5 recommended behaviors that associate with those stages that you can think about. So if we don't get to talk about it today, just know that that's there for you, and you can reference that at any time. You can also follow up with me if we're not already connected on LinkedIn. Please let's connect, and we can
I'll
have
grab your
further
link.
conversations. Uh, okay, so the third item there is going to be the team member engagement. So that's where we wanted to start. So let's start there. Uh, when we talk about team member engagement, I am going to be referencing, if you're familiar with Gallup. Gallup does a lot of different types of work. You'll probably see their names come up around elections and things like that. They do a lot of polling type work, but they're also one of the leading organizations on the workplace. And they have a huge global databases of lots and lots of data on a variety of topics that they've used to identify, amongst other things, what are some of the most important items to really create a deeply engaged team. Engaged meaning these are team members who want to be here, who are showing up eager, ready to go above and beyond. We're not just clocking in, clocking out, right? As folks, I'm assuming lots of founders on the call. Your motivation is clear, right? Your engagement is this is something that you believe in, a vision that you have, something that you are passionate about 100%. As you bring people on the team, their relationship to that vision is going to be different by per person. And so identifying for them what's most important can be really valuable.
Oh, Mike,
Yes.
you cut out. I think but it was my Discord. It does it sometimes, but then it doesn't
Oh
cut
no.
back in until you stop talking and then restart. So sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Should I build some pauses in every now
No,
and then?
it's just me. Everyone else should have heard you.
Oh, good, good. Okay. Let us know. It's so awkward to have to be like, let Ayla know in the chat, and then she'll tell me. But if you run into any issues, let us know. So I want to stop before I start sharing with you this specific resource, which is called the Gallup Q12. I'd love to ask, what kind of challenges are you all facing as you think about engaging and motivating your teams?
While they answer that, I think it's a unique kind of situation. Oh wait, never mind. Someone wants to
I see
talk.
Josh.
I'm gonna bring Josh up. Hi,
I
Josh.
was hey, I was also okay to go after you were done, Ayla,
No,
but
go for it.
I just raised my hand up. Okay, so challenges with it. Um, I find that these things tend to go in cycles where like everyone gets motivated and excited and we're doing stuff, and then like other things in their life just keep happening, and you're just like, and it just like kills the momentum, and you're like, how do I like, it puts everything in a tough spot because on the one hand, you're like, yeah, you're not being paid and you have life outside of this and you need to take care of your stuff. But also like the momentum is just dying and it happens regularly. And like we want this game to get done so we can make money, right? There's always that push and pull and it's very challenging and frustrating.
Yeah, I have a suspicion that folks are at their computers nodding right now. This
Yeah,
is
someone in
very
chat
common,
agreed
right?
with you. Um, yeah, multiple people are agreeing with Josh.
Okay, so I'm not alone. That feels better.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Absolutely not alone. I've talked with a lot of folks who have started new studios, and this is probably the most common thing that I hear is that energy tends to be kind of up and down, and we get a lot of motivation and we start moving forward, and then hard stuff happens, whether in the development of the game or in life, and it's hard to keep that momentum going. So I think we can definitely explore a little bit about that. And this is an area where I think a lot of the other folks on the call are going to be probably more helpful than I am, because as much as I work with folks to help them engage their teams, I am not leading a startup in the same way that other folks are. So, but let me before I address any answers, let me ask for more questions or experiences. What else do folks sometimes
Yeah,
struggle with?
so someone said Forbidden Kimono. I'll let you up in a second. So someone said that my team members do not believe in the project anymore. They are resigning, and we are running out of budget with nothing to show for it. Someone else said stick versus carrot mentality. No money, but can't demand or beat folks over the head for productivity or energy used. Someone else said that with one of their teams, it's mostly adhering to deadlines, likely due to lacking bandwidth or other priorities. And then someone else said the subject matter of the game, because of the nature of the project, since it focuses on merging education and gaming through game based learning. Oh, Chris, I don't know if there's more to that. Sorry. Um, but energy gets staggered. Life priorities and life events are different for everyone, so waves of motivation comes and goes. Which I get. I get this question a lot too. It's one of the most common questions. Josh, I'm gonna put you back. Thanks. And then I'm gonna bring up Forbidden Kimono. Which, by the way, while you're here, do you mind actually just changing your nickname so it's your name and your studio name? I would appreciate that. Thank you, and welcome. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm name. But yeah, another issue I have with when it comes to engagement is when you bring people to your indie studio, you tell them information about the game, you already have a game design document, and then they start off, and then eventually they start to lack of not seeing any potential in your own game.
Hmm. Interesting.
So I'm not 100% sure I followed that. Can you state that again, please?
Yeah, like for instance, one of my games, actually my team, we got like two games. So we have one that's a horror game, and a lot of them is actually motivated with that one. I haven't had no issues with that one. But the other one is an RPG cozy game, which is like a simulation management tavern tycoon game. And I bring a lot of people on board, and then a lot of people either just like what Josh did, where life happens and constantly, and then they want to reassigning, but then there's other people who eventually see these people leaving, and they just don't think the game is not to they liking no more, so they just gonna leave.
I think we're seeing this is a common repeated thing that most people in chat are saying. It's just this motivation is going away for whatever
Yeah.
reason. Um, yeah, I think you're definitely not alone there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But other than that, yeah, I think like a lot of things with the whole voluntary, nobody not really getting paid, and we trying to get release the game so everybody can get paid, but it's just so much issues with the voluntary and trying to get to the deadlines, and nobody doesn't seem like they motivated like they was in the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gerardo said it best in the chat: lack of emotional investment in the project. I think that's a common. It's one of the most common questions I get as well. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean for this group, right? There is no shortage of emotional investment in the project because it's your
Right.
project, right? So, so that part is, I mean, not to say your motivations never ebb and flow for various reasons, but you've got that as that solid sort of North Star. Uh, Let me ask. Are there folks who've had and Ayla, I would imagine you could speak to this, but other folks as well who have seen success when it comes to keeping the team motivated or overcoming when you've seen a moment where it seems like that motivation is lacking?
Yeah, I can start. We've been relatively successful with motivation. And like I said, this is probably one of the most common questions that I get. Is that, how did I manage to convince 15 people to keep working on my game for free for over a year every single week? And I think a lot of it comes from the flexibility that we have of being a volunteer studio, but also being a studio that is not here for the money, which is not what everyone here is doing, right? Our game project, the goal of it was not financial success. It was just getting eyes on the project, portfolio project. And that's, yes, is what some of us are doing, but not what others are doing, where they do want to make money off this game. And so we have a flexibility of freedom that some other studios don't have. And so, when life happens to my team, I'm more than able to just be like, yes, go deal with that. We'll pick it up back when you're ready. But also, I've been very lucky to have a team that is very just individually motivated for the game. And I think it's because I personally look at their reasons for being here. What are their goals for the project? And for me, I like the game and I want a portfolio project for my studio and like get a job. Whereas for others, like my game designer, this is not the type of game that he would play, but he enjoys the challenge of designing it and making it work, right? And so that's why he's here. Or my artist is here because he likes the game and the genre, and it's fine, but he gets to really show his personal art style off and really go for it. And they're all able to see themselves in the game because of the freedom that I've allowed them to do. But that's mine. And we have two people, and Billy was first. So, Billy, I'll bring you up here. Hi, Billy.
Hello.
Hello.
I thought I'd taken my hand down because I was basically going to echo what you've said there as to, yeah, we did it for the right reasons. It wasn't about making money. It was more about putting portfolio pieces on. Yes, it's on my Mac. I think the mic sensitivity isn't great on this one.
Yeah, but I just had to turn you all the way up. But
Yeah, I found that my other setup, I've blown my audio interface with my main microphone, so it's my little laptop microphone. But yeah, no, echoing basically what you've said there, in that we did it for portfolio reasons, and I basically sat down with my team at the start. We did one small project, and then I sat down with them for the next project and said, "What do you guys want to make? What do you want to do? What interests you?" Because I was quite keen to give them something that they wanted, and when they're doing a game that they want, they're a lot more engaged.
yeah. Okay. I'm going to bring Alito up. I'm putting you back, Billy. Thanks for being here. Alito. Hey, Alito. Are you here? We can't hear you if you're here. Hello? Alito, I don't think you're... Oh, wait, no, that was you. Alito, I don't
That
think your
was
mic's
me.
working.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I don't think your mic's working, Alito. I'm gonna put you back until you figure that out. Or you can just put it in chat. Good luck. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything you want to say to that, to those things.
I mean, I definitely can. Let me know if there's something in the chat that I should know about as well. No, I think it's being described very well, right? Um, the reason actually that when I laid this out, I kind of started with that. Who are we? What is our culture? What are our values? Is because answering that question is going to help to answer a lot of the other questions that follow. Right. So to your point, Ayla, if we're all in this because we know we're just creating, not just, but we're creating something to because we're passionate about the project and because we want to build
Portfolio.
our portfolio. Thank you. Our portfolio and our experience. Um, and we agree on that in the beginning. That's a different type of motivation. We live in a world where we also have to make money, right? We have to in order to exist because that's
Unfortunately.
what we have been all born into, right? And so that motivation obviously is a big one as well for some folks. Is how is this going to become profitable? I am curious for if there's anybody on the line who's been in that situation of, the goal is to make a profitable game, but who was maybe able to approach things in a way that felt really motivating for other reasons, right? And the reason I ask is that there's a lot of research, for example, on if with kids or with anybody, if we focus on sort of the external motivator, right? So in school, if it's like, oh, you have to get good grades, there's a very different relationship with engaging in that work than it's if, hey, just do good work that you're proud of and that you really care about, and the grades take care of themselves.
I
And
do
in some
have
cases,
one person I
yeah,
think can speak to that. It's Josh again.
please,
Welcome back, Josh.
Josh, please.
I'm always happy to talk. So, yeah, a really important part for me, and I think the type of team that I end up bringing to work with us is that I only care about games or making games. I should say I love all sorts of games. So in terms of making them, I only care about games that actually have a positive impact in the world. Like that's my whole thing. That's the only thing I really care about with making them. That's why I don't work at a game studio in my day job because 99.9% of them don't do that. And I'm like, there's a lot of work for something I don't care about. Um,
So true.
right. So yeah, so I feel like that's been a very useful motivator. Obviously some people I've had team members where they're like, this game seems feminist. I'm like, why are you working with us? I don't understand. Did you not get the whole, positive impact thing that we're about? But like most of that's rare. Most of the time, I think that's a big motivator for people is they like, oh, this not only am I making a game, but it's something that actually is trying to contribute and make the world better.
Hmm.
I think it's important for us as another motivation. And I do find like with my teams, there tends to be a mix of people who do want the portfolio work, and we're all hoping it'll do well, but we all know the realities. So it's kind of like that mix of like worst case scenario, you have portfolio work. Best case scenario, you have a job at the end, right? So that's the balance that I've found has worked well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Josh.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? When you are bringing a team together for the first time, or maybe you're looking, for an individual to fill a particular role, how do you communicate that value of doing good in the world, whatever that particular game is focused on? How do you help them understand that from the very beginning?
It's generally integrated into the elevator pitch,
Okay.
or it's like the next sentence, or maybe it's like the third or fourth sentence after the elevator pitch. Like if the elevator pitch sounds interesting, then I'm like, by the way, here's the positive impact piece we're doing, and they're like, oh, or sometimes you get that happy oh that I just did, or you get like, oh, okay, interesting, and I'm like, yeah, you don't want to work with us.
Hmm.
That wasn't the kind of oh that that would keep you motivated, right?
Yeah.
So I integrate it very early on to make sure it's clear to people.
Got it.
Yeah, that was something that I did as well. I'm gonna put you back, Josh. That's something I did as well. And what I tell people to do is I was extremely transparent from the very beginning about what the goals of the studio were, the studio pillars that we had, all of that fun stuff, that they were aware of all that stuff before they even joined the team. And so they were aware of the expectations that I had for them, and also the expectations that they could expect from me as their leader. So yeah, very clear communication from the very start is what I always tell people.
Yeah, love that. I think two really good examples of that back to back there, right? That so if you look at the handout and look at this Q12, they're called the Q12 by the way because they're all questions that you can ask a team. So if you ask your team to respond with how much they agree with the statement, I know what is expected of me at work, and they're able to say, absolutely, I know what's expected of me, they're far more likely to be engaged in their work. What too often happens in spaces is that expectations are fuzzy. And when you're building something new, that can be the case sometimes, right? Maybe we don't know from week to week exactly what we're going to be working on. Maybe we have that certain amount of ambiguity just because, hey, this is our first time building a game and stuff's going to come up that we didn't expect, and we have to be able to pivot. But understanding their role, understanding the purpose behind what we're doing here, understanding, the having that clarity of things as specific as like clear deadlines, right? I can tell you plenty of times when I worked on a project in other spaces, and I was really bad about giving deadlines. Even as a director, I was really bad about giving deadlines because I was like, "Oh, you'll get it done in your own time. You know better than I do." And then folks would just not get stuff done, and it's because I didn't clarify. Like, hey, you need to have it done by X date, right? And having that, and if somebody needs to come back and say, I can't do that, and here's why, then great, that's a conversation to have, and we can readjust expectations. How have folks had that experience of having clear expectations versus fuzzy expectations, and how that impacts you and your work?
I will say, I think it's also like an equity kind of thing because for me, deadlines are really important to know because of my ADHD and my prioritization, the way my brain prioritizes. If there isn't a deadline, I will just like not do it for a while. Like I was just in a meeting, I helped script write for a YouTube, and the end of our conversation is always like, okay, when are you trying to record this? When do I need to get the script done? Or else I have so many other things going on, it's just going to fall down the priority list. So I think that's an equity thing as well. But Haley has something to say about this. Hi, Haley.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi. So, yeah, this is interesting because we had a problem with that too at one point. We were so fuzzy that we were doing so many different things and it didn't feel like we were having any forward progress with our project. And then we ended up doing, we moved ourselves onto a project management tool called Codex and pretty much just budgeted it out. Like we work off of a 4-week quarter, and then every 2 weeks we push content, and that has like those are our deadlines, and we are a lot more fluid in the sense of like we will story point things. We try to do that as best as we can because this is also new for us. We don't know if this is like exactly how much resources we will be needing for a certain piece. And so we do have that flexibility to be like, yeah, okay, it's going to impact our burn down rate, but we'll move this to the next push, the next content push, and prioritize our well-being over getting all this content down and having crunch. And after still so we still have the flexibility that we liked originally, but we gave ourselves at least some structure, some type of deadlines and stuff like that. And I've for our core team that definitely has helped us a ton. As for our other volunteers, because like I mentioned before, we have like a whole audio department of volunteers making music and sound effects for our game, which has been really amazing. For them, since they're a lot more creative with what they're doing and they're not fully integrated into our process, we set about like, here's a month of time, here's 2 months of time. These are some soft deadlines. There's no real hard deadline. If you make this deadline, that's amazing. We'll put it in with this content so you can already start seeing some stuff for portfolios and things like that. But if you can't make it, that's okay. But it will be further down the line. You'll be able to have it in your portfolio because we have these different types of like deadlines set up for them. So that they're a little bit more flexible, and it has actually worked really well for them in that case. So we have kind of like two different things. So one for our core team, and then the one for our like more kind of like freelancery in and outy kind of people who are working on the project.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Haley. I think I
Yeah.
think you demonstrated really clearly two things there, right? That one, having that clarity is going to help us move forward. It helps us know when to prioritize. Ayla, you spoke to this, that if I don't if we're not doing stuff together, but like if I don't give you a date, right? That's I mean that may even be an accessibility issue because I'm not setting you up for success. I'm not telling you this is what's actually needed so you can prioritize in the way that's right for you. And when we don't do that, it can be very difficult. It can also devalue the work because it's like, well, what is this even being used for? When is it being used? What is the purpose of contributing this if we haven't defined um, Haley, to what you've done, this really clear cycle, and you've built flexibility into it, but it's a predictable cycle that you work through. The second thing that I really like, oh,
No,
sorry,
go ahead.
I'll just finish. The thing that I really like that you also did there with your freelancers and whatnot is to clearly articulate the value to them as well, right? Like this is a deadline that if you hit this deadline, you're going to be able to, have these things ready for your portfolio now. Great. Like there's a value proposition there of, oh, I want to hit that earlier deadline potentially. So I think again, it's clear communication though, right? Like the clearer we can be, if we don't know what the target is, how do we hit the target?
Yeah,
Right.
I've gotten this comment several times from studio founders that I talk to where they're like, "Well, we're volunteer. We don't want to ask too much from you or from our people because like, we're not paying them." And like, I'm totally there with you. I get it, right? But they're here for a reason. And so you need to give them that structure to succeed. You can ask them for deadlines. You can ask them for things. I think it is far more of a detriment if you do things too casually. Because then you are now devaluing the project, and so then they are going to devalue it in their minds as well. If they can't keep up with it, if it's not what they expected, they can always leave, right? It's a volunteer kind of project. But if you have that structure already, then it's going to be much easier for them to participate. Something as well Josh said in chat, which I also get a lot of, they said, thinking out loud, I think one of our issues is I'm the producer in addition to the project lead, programming lead, narrative lead, and level designer. We need a dedicated producer. If only there was a Discord server where I could find one. That's here. Yes, I get this. This is one of my number one pieces of advice is that you need a dedicated producer. It's my number one team fill forever in the future. It's extremely important. As a founder, you simply don't have the time to be a dedicated producer unless you literally are by trade a producer and that's your whole thing. But if you are the vision holder and the project head and the founder and all the business stuff, you just don't have time. And production is so important that you need to have a producer. We don't have to talk about that if you don't want, but it's just something I get all the time, and I saw it in chat.
I'm super glad that you said that out loud. That was next on my agenda was to talk about how important it is to have a producer.
Good.
And I think it's really easy to think you can forgo that role, right?
Yeah.
Because we think about all of the disciplines that have to come together, and it's like, well, obviously we need art, right? Obviously we need music. Obviously we need this. The organization, the communication, the process flows and whatnot that come from having a good producer will save you so much time and so much headache, and just make everything move along so much more smoothly that I cannot emphasize enough how important that role is. Do not skip it.
Yeah.
And to Josh's point, if you're already wearing several other hats, yes, bring somebody in. there are plenty of folks out there who are aspiring producers or who have done some production and are wanting to get even more skills in that area. Take advantage of that.
And
If it's a volunteer basis,
yeah,
great.
and that's why, I think this server is really great for this thing, is because it allows you in a way to recruit without too much stress, without too much I don't want to say responsibility, but like you're not paying, like you don't have to have money. And something that was happening earlier on in chat, which was like, oh, my team's biggest problem is that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but no one wants to do it, including me. And so some people were also saying that, they usually end up doing the unwanted work. And I feel like this is kind of where it happens, where, you're a founder, a system designer, producer, project manager, all of that stuff. I think it's really important because it is your responsibility, I feel, as a leader to take on those unwanted projects, especially in a volunteer setting. Like if you're paying someone to do the unwanted projects, then that's easier. But if you're not, like we are not, then it's your responsibility. And therefore it's your responsibility to either A, do those things, or if you know yourself, which I am very much this kind of person where I'm like, I just know I'm not going to do that, then it's your responsibility to bring on someone who can do that. And so that's why this server exists. Hire some producers.
Love that 100%, right? I can think of how many times in my own life, for example, starting Mattering Lab, right? Like I had been doing the work and thinking about it for probably 2 years before I actually started it formally and incorporated and whatnot. And it sounds stupid in retrospect, but one of the biggest things that held me back was I was like, well, I need a website, but I don't want to build a website until I have a logo. And it was a logo. Like that was the thing that I
block,
was
yeah.
like, I waited 2 years. And then I finally was like, this is not a skill that I possess. I'm going to hire somebody to create a logo, right? And not everybody's in a position that you can hire somebody, but you also have lots of talented folks around you who may want to do whatever that need is.
And that's something as well,
And
is obviously there's the server here with the volunteer opportunities, but there's also the partner chat. And I highly recommend, if you have little things like that or you just need some help, ask in the partner chat. You never know how the studio next to you can help. If you need a logo, I'm sure there are some graphic designers or artists in here who might be able to help you out really quickly when you don't want to like open up a whole role for that. So this is what the whole community is about helping with those kinds of things. So don't be shy, ask for help.
amazing, because we're all going to hit those hurdles, right? For sure. There's going to be some skill that is not present on the team. And to your point, Ayla, those things that nobody wants to do. I'm with you that I think, hey, if you're a founder and there's tasks that nobody really wants and you don't really want it, I would say first, if you can find somebody else to bring in who actually likes to do that stuff,
Yeah.
bring them in. I will echo, putting it onto somebody else's plate is probably not a good idea. If they're going to be demotivated by doing that work, you need the
Yes.
motivation. Motivation is your currency.
Yes.
And the more we spend time in spaces where we feel like we're not good enough, the lower our motivation is going to go.
Absolutely.
And the more we're going to start to procrastinate and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a reason why this is the first item on the list. I know what's expected of me. These are conversations you can have really early. These are conversations when you're bringing somebody on. Ideally, you have at least a general idea of like, what are our timelines looking like? What is the expectation of the amount of work that happens on a 2-week or 3-week sprints or something along those lines, right? Whatever you're defining it, but to be able to share that from the beginning so that there aren't surprises, right? If I come in and I thought that I was going to be working a couple of hours a week and suddenly I'm working 10 plus hours a week, my relationship to this project might change. Ayla, you look like you were going to say something.
I
so
was,
pause.
yes. I wanted to say a couple of things that I think contributed to my team's success. Is obviously we have studio pillars, much like game pillars, which we did try and did not do well. But the studio pillars worked really well, which our studio pillars are communication, education, and passion. And in this case, communication and passion are usually the ones I talk the most about. and again, from the very start, I had these pillars because these are things that are very important to me, and I need them to be reciprocated in my team members in order for us to work together well. So communication was always from the start. Like, I want them to feel safe in the team to communicate about whatever they need, but also for them to expect that communication of me. And then again, passion as well is our currency, right? It's what I'm paying, they are paying, right? So you need to find ways to keep that passion up, and open and honest communication, understanding those expectations is how that how that works, at least in my team. Because they know what's expected of them, they know what they can come to me about, they feel safe to come to me about these things. And yeah, we've had issues in the team with deadlines or just like personal issues, and we were able to 100% of the time go over the hill with that. I'm not saying the right phrase. Overcome that because of the open communication style that we have.
Yeah, it absolutely essential for a team, and the downfall of so many teams is poor communication. Right? If we're not being clear, people, when we lack information, our brains invent stories, and so if we're not communicating what we need, assumptions are being made about what we need, and they may not be accurate, right? They may be very inaccurate, which can cause a lot of problems down the line. I think as folks who are leaders, and everybody on this call is a leader, right? That we often put pressure on ourselves that we just need to figure all this stuff out, right? Like I'm just picking the first name I see, Nathan, if I work with you for long enough, eventually we're going to understand each other. I'll know your communication style, you'll know mine. You'll know how I operate and my timelines, and I'll know yours, right? Like these kinds of things. But like, what if we just talked about it? What if we just had a conversation? And I'll share that the other tool, which was the second attachment, I'll share with you in a moment because it relates to that. But I want to make sure I'm looking at the time. I want to at least get through some of these other items and engagement, if that works. But
Yes.
please stop us at any time. So number one, absolutely, folks need to know what's expected of them. Number two, this gets in the way a lot, right? If I don't have the materials and equipment I need, and sometimes it's not really materials and equipment, it's information that I need. It's it's maybe kind of where I am in the pipeline and what folks need from me. If that's not communicated clearly, when we don't have information, when we don't have tools, etc., that can be extremely disengaging. Probably I'm guessing if we're volunteering, we're asking that folks are providing their own equipment and whatnot. Is that a safe assumption to make?
Yes. Obviously, I think most of the studios don't have money.
Right.
Although I did talk with a studio that recently joined, their VR studio, and they actually provide VR equipment to all of their people, and I thought that was amazing and super cool. I don't think a lot of us are in the position to do that, but I guess some of us are, so that's cool.
So I would say whatever position you're in, like this might be a conversation to have. Does everybody actually have what they need to get their job done? And if people are scrambling but feeling like they can't speak up and say, "Oh, I actually don't have, whatever this program or whatever to execute something," that's a problem, right? And we need to communicate really clearly about what we need and what we have, etc.
Someone buys pizza for all their team members at the end of big milestones, and that's so cool.
That's wonderful. You know what? I'm going to skip ahead to number 5 over here, and number 4. In the last 7 days, I've received recognition or praise for doing good work, and my supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. What an awesome way to demonstrate that, right? That this mattered. I will tell you something about my leadership style that I have to be very careful of. Is I am extremely future oriented. And so every time I finish a project or hit a milestone, instead of thinking, hey, we should celebrate because people did a lot of really good work and it deserves to be recognized, my mind goes to, okay, what's next? And I've absolutely demoralized teams in the past by focusing on what's next and not taking a moment to celebrate what came before, right? So I think whoever said that, awesome.
Nathan.
And it doesn't have to be I'm spending money or anything else, but I'm doing something. I'm doing something so that people know consistently that they are appreciated
Something that
and
I
that what they're
do
doing has value. Yeah.
that I has been very nice for my team. Very good. They enjoy it, is what I'm saying. Well, one, because of my networking skill, I know a lot of people and know how to get to know a lot of people. And so something that I do is I regularly supply mentors to my team so that they can continue their education within the project and without it. Like, for example, I had a team member need help with something that didn't relate to our project at all, and he asked me to find a mentor for him, and I did, and it worked out. But also I also, again, networking, because that's my skill. I'm constantly looking for jobs for my people. Actually, as of the other day, we now have 3 of our team members who have found paid contracts in the industry. 2 of those came from my networking stuff. So that's very cool. And obviously that, may very well be detrimental to my project because a paid position is always going to be a higher priority than my unpaid one. But, it's what they need and it's what they want. And it's how I show that I appreciate them and know their skills and all that stuff. Because it's my strength. That's my strength, is being able to find these things. So, work with what your strength is.
I love that so much. And there's that third pillar of education, right?
Yes.
That
Yeah, that is
that
where
just
the
got
education one
pulled
comes
in.
in.
Here's actually an interesting thing that happens sometimes with leaders, and I've heard it said from leaders who I've worked with in the past. If I spend a lot of time developing my people, then they're going to leave and find something better, right? They're gonna leave, they're gonna find something different, and then I will lose my best people, or I will lose folks from my team. It's absolutely the opposite, especially if part of the motivation of coming together is we came together to learn and grow our skills and become better at what we're doing. If you're not investing in the development of your team, then they'll go somewhere where that investment is happening, right? A lot of folks, if they feel that they are growing, they will be a lot more patient to stick around and continue to contribute. What I will guess, Ayla, is that while time might become an issue, right, as folks have more competing demands, I would be willing to bet that the loyalty has increased because of the sincere commitment that you've demonstrated to your team.
Yes, I'm very happy to, I guess, assume that I have that my team is very, very loyal to me. I mean, I know that more often, more often than I'd like, they are like, I want to work. What's the next project? Let me know what it is. I'm there. And I'm like, I don't know what the next project is, and I don't know if you're going to be honest. So please stop asking. And that's great, right? That's really awesome to hear. But yeah, I also think, going back to that kind of passion pillar that I have, passion creates motivation, which then creates time. If someone really wants to do something, it doesn't matter how busy they are, they're going to do it, right? And so if I can maintain that passion for the project, whether or not they have other priorities, they're probably going to continue working on my game, which is great. And that has exactly what happened with a lot of my team members do have other jobs that they do.
Yeah.
But they still are able to come back every time and work every week and do stuff.
Yeah. And it's in identifying, where do you get your passion from, right? What motivates you? And it doesn't have to look like what motivates me.
Exactly.
But how do I tap into that in a way? And if you look at these items right on the screen, so many things happen there. Obviously, you care about me if you've taken the time to get to know me and what motivates me, and really tailored your approach to that, right? You're encouraging my development by providing these opportunities to learn and grow. I'm getting to do what I do best because you've aligned my work with the things that I excel at. One thing that came up is if you find that folks are, it seems like, procrastinating, or there's certain work that's just not getting done, there's a great chance that work is not aligned with people's strengths.
Yeah.
And not to say that everything we do will be aligned with our strengths. The reality of life is that you will have to do things that do not line up with what you do best every day. But if you're doing a lot of things that don't line up with what you do best, we need to start asking questions of, like, are people in the right seats? Should we shift what you're working on to better align it with who you are and what you're all about?
Yeah.
Because we're not getting where we need to be, and we're just demoralizing everybody along the way, right?
That kind of goes back to where everyone on my team is able to see themselves in the game. They're able to do something that they enjoy for the game. But it especially comes up a lot with my programmers because there's 3 of them, whereas the rest of the team is mostly just 1 person per department. But my programmers, oftentimes, they kind of switch things back and forth. They're because while we have like a systems programmer, a lead programmer, and a narrative programmer, they kind of do other things all the time based on what their interests are and what they feel confident in and what they want to do. And so I'm always asking this of all the team members, but especially the programmers, it happens most often. Where I'm like, hey, like, is this something that you want to work on, or do you want, or like, are you not that interested in it, and you're more interested in doing a different system that may or may not align with what your normal job description, right? So yeah, I think it's important for them to kind of choose their tasks, and that's part of our sprint scrum system, which I think it might just be an official part of agile. I just don't know, where the person, the employee, volunteer, whatever, picks their tasks. They are not assigned those tasks, they choose them themselves. And that is really important because, so yeah, we have a backlog of all these things that need to be done, and I prioritize them and I scope them, and all that. Me and my producer do that together, and so they know when these things need to be done. But on any given day or any given week during the sprint, they are allowed to be like, I want to work on this one specifically. These are the ones that have to be done. This is the one I want to work on. And that gives them that kind of individual identity or whatever that they can, work on from week to week, and it changes with their priorities and their interests and stuff.
Yeah, I think great is somebody really early on, right, asked about a carrot and stick, right? And when we're volunteering, like, what sticks do we really have other than, hey, you're not on the team anymore or something like that? But that's a carrot. Like, what do you actually love? What are you passionate about? How do we put you on that so that you can do the thing that you're really excited to do? Perfect.
My
Like,
lead
what an
programmer
amazing way to
loves
tap that.
animating. She's like, it's her little side thing. And so every once in a while, she'll just like take a day and just animate something new into the thing that we didn't ask for, didn't even think about, but it's awesome and amazing. And it really gives a personality to the game.
Yeah, that's like the definition of an engaged team member right there, right?
She's great.
Going above and beyond, doing the thing I never had to do just because I'm excited to be here and I care about what we're doing. So that's really, really important. I mean, my opinion seems to count. Q7, right? We're kind of working our way through this list. Sorry, I keep pressuring you to put it up and
No,
down.
you're
Um, I'm on just a little laptop,
Yeah,
so
I
it's so
understand. No
tiny.
worries. I know it's on my like vertical screen too. Sorry guys. You have the attachment. If you don't have it, I can send
Yes.
it again, but it is in the chat.
Hopefully folks are able to open it. So, the purpose of sharing this is just to give you all some tools and thoughts. If you're struggling motivating the team, start to ask some of these questions, and you can start to identify what you can really invest your time and energy in. Right? If people join this team because they thought they were going to learn and grow, Q12, and what they feel like they're doing is a lot of what they already know, and they're just kind of cranking it out, and now I feel like I'm just kind of a cog in a machine and I'm not learning and growing. That's going to be really demotivating, right? So we have to give people those stretch assignments, if that's what is getting them to the table. But to know that you have to communicate with your team, you have to understand, and you can actually just ask them these questions directly, right? Or show them this list and say, what here's important to you?
This list is super familiar, and I was like, I've taken this question as part of like a performance thing for my old job. I don't remember my answers, but I've seen.
I mean, and it'll change, right? So whatever your answers were then wouldn't be your answers now. Fair. Yeah, this gets pretty widely used as a tool to measure employee engagement all over the world, and it's because this, not to say this is the only things you can do, but this data has been backed up again and again, that the most engaged team members globally are able to say yes to these things. Yes, I get, my opinion counts. Yes, my fellow team members are committed to doing quality work. Another big trip up for especially volunteer teams, right? If I feel like I'm hustling every day and there are other folks who are not really investing the same, and we're not talking about that, right? Everybody seems to be, being celebrated the same way as getting to do the same stuff. oof, that could be really demotivating. Right? So it's across the team as well that we have to manage this stuff.
I like how these questions are focused on um, like how the company can do better rather than
Yeah.
how the employee can do better. Because like I know what is expected of me at work, and if they say no, I suppose that one can go either way. But ideally, it's okay, they don't know what they need to know. We have failed somewhere in communicating their expectations, right? Or their opinion seems to count, or they had opportunities to work, to learn, and grow. I remember that one specifically because I had a direction at my old job that I wanted to go, and they did not want me to go in that direction, and that's eventually ended up as one of the reasons I left. Yeah.
Yeah, way to get out. Jeez.
Yeah. No, I was really good. Angelo, yes, you can. Yes, please ask questions. You can also raise your hand and come up and chat too. So, yeah. Oh, Angelo's coming up already. He's ready. Hey, Angelo.
All right, Angelo.
Hi.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Good. What's up?
So, for me, I'm a little bit younger mostly. I'm 21 and I'm getting ready to start college. And I started this back in December of 23. And for me, I guess I'm running into a little bit of burnout of just trying to make sure everyone's happy, everything's running well, not trying to be over everyone's shoulder, but at the same time making sure that I'm involved enough that, it shows that I care. I want to make sure everything's running, but I also know the feeling of having management standing over your shoulder every time, making sure everything's happening. And I guess my question's kind of like, how do you find the balance to make sure you're involved enough that you're helping the team positively and not being a hindrance, rather?
It's a good question. I like that question a lot, and I have some thoughts. I want to open it up though, if anybody has any of their own thoughts, because I feel like you're hearing a lot of me.
That's why you're here.
Well, that's true, but everybody else is also here. So
My immediate question is, do you have a producer? But either way,
that, yeah,
either what I have tried to do is it's less about like, hey, is this thing done because we have a deadline, so like where are we at, and it's more of like I try to show a genuine interest in where they're at, what they've done, and celebrate them for that, and then show an interest in why the other stuff is not done, and really try and dig into the root of the issue of what exactly is holding them back, rather than being like, hey, this is due, you need to get this done, why is it not done, and more of like, oh, okay, like, so what's the hold up, like, do you need help with something? I'm always asking how I can support them, just verbally being like, hey, so what do you need? Like, can I get you anything? Do you need a mentor? Do we need to bring in an advisor for this? Like, what do we need to do? Like, and really try to, because they're not going to be as open and being like, oh, I'm just like not feeling it. They don't want
Right,
to show weakness, right? And especially to a
right.
boss figure. And so I try to be as equal on an equal level as I can with them, and show like, hey, we're all in this together, and my job is to support you. So what do you need? How can I help?
Yeah, I guess for me it's a little bit more difficult, or rather I find it a little bit more difficult because I come from like a IT kind of sysadmin background, and I didn't really have kind of a gaming background to begin with. The only really, I guess, experience, I mean, I guess if you could call it that, is kind of like video editing and stuff I did for a previous company. But I try to look things up when I can, or try to. I'm sharing a Udemy account with a friend of mine who I'm trying to learn a couple things on there, and I'm trying to find something that I can kind of pick up a little bit easier to try to step in and help when I can. And that's where I'm trying to kind of find a balance of like, well, what areas kind of lacking, where can I help, where can I contribute without stepping on toes, and making sure everyone kind of can contribute equally. Because I mean, for me at least, the main reason I started this is because I love video games obviously, but I also know a lot of people in the industry were just having a struggle. And I mean, a lot of these AAA companies are a little rough around the edges these days, and I just want to try to bring back I don't know, the creativity, and kind of bring things back to like really making games for the love of it. And it sucks when I have team members who are kind of running into things, and I'm kind of just stuck there because I'm not educated on that enough, and
I do.
that's where it comes into play of feeling rough, I guess.
I have a question. This feeling of I'm over their shoulder, pressuring them. Where's that coming from? Is that coming only from you, or are you getting some feedback that is happening?
Um, well, I no, actually, I've gotten zero feedback on that. But I'm pretty sure that it's more of a deeply rooted childhood thing that's kind of coming out with the company. And I'm like 90% sure that's what it is. And I want to make sure that it's both I'm helping people, but at the same time I don't want to be like taking somebody's job and doing all their stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I do absolutely horrible at delegating tasks.
It's
That's
an
been told to me many times
important
of like picking
leadership
too.
trait.
Right. Yeah, I'm picking everything up and doing everything. And multiple times, a producer and a friend of mine have just been saying, like, well, these people are here to do their job, so let them do their job. And I know that's true, and it's just like something I got to get through.
A couple of things in chat before Mike, you have your take on this. Nathan says that it varies from team to team, but some people need tighter structures while other people prefer more flexibility. What has worked for me is to just ask, establish the basic expectations, then ask how much support individual collaborators want or need. Obviously, this only works for smaller teams, but there aren't any large, super 100+ teams here. Although, is Kyle here? What is Ruby Shark at nowadays? Aren't you guys pretty big? I don't know if you guys are 100+, but I think you guys are pretty big, around 60s. You're getting up there. But Haley said something really interesting. She said, have you tried doing retros after milestones? Like not just talking about the project, but also about how everyone is personally feeling. Then things that come up that might need more help, you can just hop on. You can also hear everyone's feeling. I'm also constantly asking how my team is feeling. And oftentimes they answer of like, oh, their status on their work. And I'm like, no, how are you feeling? Not like what's actually
Right,
going on.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, no, I can definitely say I agree with that. I mean, I guess I try to ask as much, but it's like that thought in the back of the head of like I'm pestering too much, I'm doing too much. Let them just do their job, it'll work out. But then it kind of bounces back and forth of, am I checking in too little? Do I need to have more of a leadership role? And that's kind of like where my head's at right now. It's like that bouncing back and forth of doing too much or doing too little.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to let you talk on this. Angelo, I'm going to put you
Yeah.
back to listen.
Yep, all good.
Well, I think I was right to not talk because I knew that brilliance would come. So Nathan, you beat me to my thoughts, which was that it's okay just to ask, right? If you're concerned, Angela, first of all, I just want to commend. I think I'm what I'm hearing is just this incredibly, giving spirit of you want to set people up in a space where they can be creative and do it for the love of making the game, and that you want to make sure that you are showing up for them as the leader that they need, which is great. There is I'm not going to suggest people here are doing this, but I think a lot of folks, when they're in a leadership role, put, again, so much pressure on themselves to be like, I have to have all the answers. I have to always know what to do. I have to always know the path forward, right? And uh, what actually is the case in terms of engaging the team and making sure that they know, one, that it's a safe place for them to not have all the answers as well, is to be vulnerable. And I think you just saying to them, I really want to make sure I'm the leader that you need. And so I'd love to check in now and then to make sure that I'm getting that balance right. Right. Or I'd love, what do you think? Am I being too hands on or too hands off? What works best for you? And just having the conversation. Um, and then you can make them allies in that, right? Say, hey, I'm really working on this thing, right? Like I'll use my same example from before. I think I have a tendency to not celebrate enough, and I skip to the next thing. If you ever catch me doing that, can you just point it out so that I can be more aware? Because I'm really trying to grow in this area, and I'd appreciate your support with that, right? Like I've just given this person permission, if I do the thing that bothers them, to tell me that it bothers them, or to tell me what they need.
A
Does that make
mind
sense?
a mindset that I try to adopt is like I'm the founder, creative director, right? That puts me at a higher level of authority. But I do my best to try to act as equally as possible. And really, I just have a different job. Whereas my art guy, he does art. My programming, they do programming. I manage the scope, right? I manage the vision. That's my job. And so my job is to be a boss, but they just know I'm just doing my job. I'm not there to boss them around. I'm just there to do my job, which is to manage the scope and the vision of the game and deadlines and all that stuff. I'm not here to challenge my authority or whatever words I'm saying. You get it. So I try to be on equal level. And something that Steven said in chat, he said, how do I deal with feeling like an asshole when I boss my team around? I try to be as nice as possible, but most times I still feel like I'm ordering them to do things. I would love to hear your take on this, Mike. My take is that ideally, everyone has the same goal on the team, right? Well, they have their individual goals of why they're there, of course, and what they want to get out of the project. But you also have the game goal, whatever the goal of the game is, and the project. And so if you are all working towards the same goal, then you're all working on the same level, and they can understand why you are just doing your job of being the boss in order to make sure that, we're all equal contributors to the end goal.
Yeah, I love that. I think that that's a really great perspective, right? Of just being really clear about what roles are and whatnot, and that sometimes this is the role that I'm going to have to play. I struggled for so long when I started leading people with telling them what to do, right? Or telling them, oh, this is the timeline. And part of that was my own, um, I would say, insecurity around having different types of expertise, right? Like I'm not an artist. I don't know what to tell an artist in terms of a timeline that makes sense. And so feeling like, well, I shouldn't try to assert, anything over this or whatnot. But we don't have to, right? Like we can have the conversation. Like, hey, I need to set the timeline. How long do you think that this part of the project is going to take? Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out together. Cool. Do you think that you could actually move that up a couple of days because we have this other need? But it can be a conversation, right?
Collaboration.
Yeah, it's a collaboration. I personally am not a fan of the word boss. I think boss for me has a lot of negative connotations. But at the end of the day, if your role is to make sure everything is staying on track and that we're moving forward, you do need to play that role.
Yeah.
But you can stay open with your people about, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. Is the way I'm doing it working for you? And if it's not, what could we adjust, right? And it's usually something really small. I worked with a team. I've worked at actually several teams that were having communication challenges and what they perceived to be engagement issues because they were coming into meetings and things, and there were people who consistently weren't speaking up in meetings. And in their mind, it was like, well, these people are obviously disengaged, right? They're not invested in being here. They're not speaking their minds. And in exploring a little bit, what we discovered, and this is one of those examples of just a small thing that sometimes you can change, is that they weren't sharing agendas for meetings in advance. And these were folks who just needed a little bit more time to think. And so they were being put on the spot and they weren't ready to share their opinion because they hadn't had enough time to formulate it. And it was like, oh, what if you just provided an agenda in advance? And they were like, yeah, that would be amazing. And it changed the way that they were engaging, right? But because they hadn't talked about it, we tell ourselves stories, and we tell ourselves stories that, oh, they're disengaged. I tell myself stories that, oh, I'm being too micromanagey or not engaged enough. And we don't have to. We can just ask the questions and have a good conversation. As long as we're creating a space where it's safe to do so, right? If people feel like if they say something and they're taking a risk by telling you what they need, then that's another conversation that needs to happen. Sorry, Ayla, you were gonna say.
No, you're good. It's just something interesting in chat. So Stephen, kind of on his previous question, is saying that sometimes I have to send back work, sometimes because someone has done it wrong or it needs additions or corrections. They don't like feeling like they are nagging them about that, but they say they've had team members get upset because they've had to send things back or change things around, even though making and testing to see if it's actually working is an essential part of good game dev practice. Team members demand that I have all the answers from the planning stages, including specific numbers, but how can I have those answers if it hasn't been tested yet? And Billy actually responded to this, and I also want to respond to it. Billy said, usually good to go with good first iteration, let's add or remove XYZ, and then I think we'll be there. My team has an expectation that the first thing they send over probably isn't going to be the final asset. And I was going to kind of say the same thing. To me, and Mike, I'm interested in your thoughts as well. To me, this sounds like an expectation miscommunication. Like they aren't fully aware of what they need and what they can get from you, but also what they need to succeed. It sounds like the process, like Billy said, isn't fully set and understood. And it shouldn't be bad that things are wrong, right? It's a collaborative process. Game dev just in general is a collaborative process. Nothing is going to be good the first time around. Of course, you want to approach that in a way that is educational, growth mindset, kind of like, hey, yes, this is good what we got so far. I think, this thing isn't as good for the vision for this reason. Explain your reasoning. And then, don't be like, this is bad and wrong, go do it again. It's more of like, okay, you're on the right track or you're not on the right track for these reasons. And yeah, expectations, I feel like you need to just have more communication with your team. But Mike.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo you again. I think, and from both in that sort of second engagement of, okay, now you've brought something back to me and I'm giving you feedback on the project, right, whatever it was, and on the first one, right? If we're not clearly communicating, and I realized, by the way, as I say this, that you were describing a situation where it was like, well, we didn't know what we didn't know. And then we got it back, and then we discovered, oh, we have to go in another direction. But like that can be part of the initial communication. That can be part of, hey, this is something that I need from you, just so you know, like I'm not totally sure how it's going to fit yet. Right, I'm making stuff up right now, but we're not totally sure what this is going to look like. But if you can turn this around and we'll test it out and then we'll iterate from there. If the expectation from the beginning is that we're going to iterate and they know that, then when you have that conversation, they're already set up for it, right?
Yeah, but also
if what they thought, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just also have a conversation about trying to figure out what the frustrations are from them.
Right.
What exactly is frustrating? Is it because you don't have the answers, or is it because they're confused because their expectations have not been properly set? And so having an open and honest, equal conversation can hopefully get to that.
Yes, yeah, really clarifying around that, right? And I think for us to start by looking internally of, did I set the right expectations to begin with? Sometimes the answer is going to be no, right? Like maybe I messed up. Maybe I asked you for something and I was not clear, or I asked for the wrong thing because I was mistaken about something. Then just own that and say, you know what? I really appreciate the work and I know we can continue to use what you've already done and build off of it. I should have communicated this before, right?
I do that all the time.
That's fine. We make mistakes.
Yeah.
If it's not that, if it's, somebody thinking, no, when I produce something, it's perfect and done, and I'm not taking a second pass at it, like that's another conversation to have about, that's not how we work here, right? Like, so if this is a good space for you, you need to understand that this is a back and forth, and we're going to continue to iterate over time. But yeah, it's diagnosing the problem first.
Yeah.
Right. And so don't make assumptions about, oh, I did this wrong or I did that wrong. Just ask, like, what is it that you felt like you needed that you didn't get?
Yeah.
And then we can work from there. I swear, like 90% of what I do, by the way, in leadership development is just to help people have better conversations.
Yeah, communication is so insanely important, and I consider it one of my pretty strong strengths, one of my top strengths. And the thing is, I have no idea where I got it from. My parents were not like this, and I really don't know where I got it from. Maybe it is really the teaching. I'm not sure. But yes, I believe that every single issue in the world, anything, literally anything, comes down to either communication or education. And that's just like a world belief that I have. And so I've gotten very good at communication. And the thing is, like, as a leader, I have learned that sometimes you just kind of got to swallow your pride and do things properly. And so, like, there was an issue relatively recently with one of my team members where there was just like a miscommunication, and they didn't like something that was happening, and the conversation that we were having wasn't quite getting to the root of the problem, because I was frustrated. I felt like things were not going properly. We were, behind schedule. They wanted to change things, and I didn't want anything changed, but they wanted to change things so that they felt comfortable and good about it. And I was frustrated. And, in that conversation, I pulled the boss card. I was like, well, yeah, at the end of the day, I get to make the final decision, and this is what we're going to do. And at the time, it felt like the right thing to do, because I didn't feel like we were getting anywhere. They didn't react to that very well, even though technically I'm right, but they didn't react very well to it. And anyway, the conversation ended. We got to a resolution that worked for the conversation. But after I was done, I kind of realized that, and I calmed down, and I was less frustrated. A day had passed, and I was like, there was something more to this conversation that I did not get to. The root of the problem, I did not get there. And I was clouded by my frustration. And I really just had to swallow my pride, be like, I know I'm the boss, but also I need to know exactly what is happening with this person. And what ended up, I got together with them a couple days later, talked to them, and realized that there was a personal reason behind this issue that they had. And I realized that not long after the conversation, but at the time I was frustrated. But before I went into that second conversation, I was like, but I'm right, though. I'm right. I am right. I am the leader, and we are going to do it this way because, I'm the boss. But it didn't matter that I was right. I had to swallow that pride and be like, what exactly is the issue? How can we resolve this in a way that makes everyone feel good and happy? And once I kind of accepted that, then, we got somewhere good.
It's a really good example, right? Like sometimes being right isn't enough.
Yeah.
That we have to navigate complicated relationships, and all of us are people existing in a frankly extremely difficult world, especially at the moment. And so how are we navigating that in a way that is respecting that, sometimes things are going to be hard, and for reasons that have nothing to do with this game we're working on, or whatever it is that was happening in that space, right? Um, if we can just talk about this stuff, give ourselves permission to talk about it, give ourselves permission sometimes to slow down and address the elephant in the room that we're all trying to push past because we have a deadline coming up, right? But if we deal with the elephant, we can actually move forward a lot more smoothly. Um, it's about having that ability to allow it for ourselves, and I think giving grace to ourselves, as everybody on this line, you're gonna mess up. Sometimes I mess up all the time. It happens, and it's okay. We don't have to beat ourselves up. We can learn from it and figure out how to move forward, right? And apologize if we need to, and have a conversation that rebuilds trust if we need to. Um,
I have
but it's
a
yeah,
question from Angela, which I think is good.
yeah.
What would, because he's coming from a background of not very experienced in all areas of the game industry, same. What would you say is the best way to learn and grow leadership wise? I have an advisor that is helping me and another CEO giving me tips, but I'd like to learn some better leadership. I feel like as someone very young in the scene, it feels like everything I'm doing, I second think. I gotta be real. Personally, Mike, you may disagree with me. Personally, I think age is absolutely a factor here. You will learn, you will make mistakes, you will learn, and you will grow from those situations, and so there are things that you just won't know now because you haven't experienced them, and I think that's okay. I think as long as you can recognize that and be like, obviously still working as best as you can to learn, like it sounds like you are, but yeah, I think age is absolutely a factor, but at the same time, you have to be open to understanding and recognizing your weaknesses, your faults, right? In leadership. But as for the rest of the question, Mike, you can talk about that.
I'll agree with you. I think age and experience is a factor, right? Anytime we're newer to something, it's harder to have the same level of confidence. The secret, though, is that even for folks who are very seasoned, oftentimes they're second guessing themselves and they're unsure about how to proceed.
Knows what they're doing.
Right? Like we're all making it up,
yeah,
all the time. And for some of us, we've gotten better at making it up, and we've had more experiences, but then we have to be careful that we're not getting set in our ways and not being open to new ways of thinking. So it's a leadership is a journey forever. You don't get to a point where you're like, great, I'm an awesome leader now, and that's just who I am forever. It's a daily practice of how did I show up today? You know, did I um, show up for my people in the way that they needed me to? Did I not? What do I have to do about that if I didn't? Right? It's this ongoing conversation. I will say this, in my opinion, the person who maybe experiences a little imposter syndrome or who questions themselves, who's kind of constantly looking at, am I doing this right? Could I be doing this better? Is so much better off than the person who's like, I got it down. I'm so good at this.
Definitely.
Because we stop growing, right? And we settle into our mistakes and we settle into the things that don't work. And oftentimes those people don't get the feedback, right? Because they tend to be in positions of power and they just exercise that power. But I will, Angelo and anybody else who doubts your leadership skills at times, I'm going to say that that's a good sign because it means that you're actively caring and working on it. And so continue to actively care and work on it, and get feedback. If you're ever unsure, you don't have to solve that mystery on your own. Just get some feedback.
Oh my God, get some feedback. Yes, I love feedback. I can never get enough of it. I think it's also very important and something that I've seen in every industry. It's difficult, but sometimes people don't really know how to both give and receive feedback. And that's a skill on its own. You need to be able to intake feedback without the kind of emotional, reaction to it of like, oh, that makes me feel bad. You need to look past that and see, hey, like they are saying this for a reason. Is it the reason they say, or is it some background reason that they don't quite know? Therapy is great. Maybe just slide that in there. Therapy is great to get to know yourself, and it's also another way to help you intake feedback, but also give feedback. Giving feedback is important as well, to do it in a way that is not reductive and not personal or emotional, but just for that growth mindset. And that can be difficult for younger people and also for older people, honestly older people as well. Like every age struggles with that. It's a skill that you have to learn, and I think it's really important for leaders to be able to obviously give feedback but also take feedback, because oftentimes in leadership positions there's that confidence, right, where they think that they're in the leadership position, they deserve to be there, and nothing they can do is ever wrong, when that is just simply not true.
I would add to that, in my experience, having worked with a lot of folks and teaching folks how to give feedback in a lot of cases, that's one of the topics I train on. That confidence that you mentioned is sometimes projecting confidence.
Oh, definitely. There's always
there's a lot of
yes. It's actually
and there's pressure, right?
Self insecurity. It's actually a lot of insecurity manifesting as confidence, but yeah.
Yeah, and I have to show up as if I know exactly what I'm doing, because otherwise my team's going to lose confidence. Or right, like there can even be, good intentions behind showing up in that way, even though showing up in that way tends to be harmful. But it's like, how do we not fall into that trap, right? Being able to show up and have the courage to be vulnerable and not be perfect and not have all the answers, but be here to say, yes, I'm going to help us muddle through this, right? I'm not going to be afraid to have the hard conversation. Like that's what leadership ultimately is. It's not knowing all the answers, because we can't possibly.
Something Josh
but it's
said,
being willing to navigate. Yeah.
Josh said, personal growth and development is super important. Either you'll pursue it or it will be forced upon you by unfortunate circumstances, which is so accurate. I have a little, it's kind of off topic, but I have a little kind of rule of mine is, people won't accept help until they're ready to accept it. And so like for me, therapy is huge. And I always tell all my friends like, hey, go to therapy. And they just don't want to do that because they're not ready for it. But also it provides so much frustration for me because I know that will help you, And so if you can recognize that you are a lifelong learner, have a growth mindset, there's always ways to improve, then you can pursue your own development instead of waiting for yourself to hit that rock bottom and it being forced upon you.
Yeah. Being able to have that perspective of being a lifelong learner is such an important thing, right? Because it will help you. I mean, sometimes it will make you feel insecure because you realize how much you don't know, right? Um, there's definitely a bliss in ignorance
Definitely.
of like we don't know. I don't know what I don't know, so it's easy to assume you know everything. But it will serve you so well because any situation you get into, you don't have to be perfect, because you can grow through it, right? You can figure it out. So giving yourself that permission is a big deal. And I think if we all, not to say everybody's had these experiences, but I'll think about my own life. If we think about the leaders or bosses or supervisors or whatever we call them in our lives that frustrated us most, at least for me, it's often the ones who had the most projected confidence, the most, you know,
Know it
uh,
all.
right, were the most sure that they had it all together. And the ones that I loved were the ones that were willing to be messy with me. Were like, yeah, I don't know, why don't we figure it out together, right? Like that's it's such a different experience, and we don't have to have so much pressure on ourselves. To there's no such thing as perfect.
Yeah.
The moment you define something as perfect, you're done. Like it's not going to grow anymore, and we're not going to risk it. We're not going to innovate anymore because
Something that
we're
I
done.
was taught as I was learning to be a teacher is that it is okay as a teacher to say, I don't know. And I think that's important in leadership as well. It's okay to say you don't know and to help find the answer. You don't have to know everything. You are not supposed to know everything. Perfection doesn't exist. Just be open to learning, be open to being wrong, and just grow, learn.
Yeah. And I would take it a step further even and say not only is it okay, it is important and essential to
Yes.
not know and to own and freely share our failures and mistakes because of how much that creates a space that it's okay to grow,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we're in a space where our leader is always right and never makes a mistake, at least that we see, the
Yeah.
pressure then on us to always get it right and never make a mistake is huge. Uh, and what happens in that situation is that people stop trying new things because if you have to succeed, you're going to do whatever's the safest route to success. You will not take a risk. And when we make mistakes, we tend to hide them in those sorts of environments
This
rather
sounds
than
like the AAA
just come right
space
up.
to me.
What?
What?
And not all of it, right? Not
Yeah, I'm sure.
universally, but yeah, there's plenty of spaces where we don't get to just show up as a human, right? And the more that you can create these human spaces, we should celebrate failure.
Hmm.
I'm 100% on that. Like if we screw up, fantastic. What lesson have we learned from this failure?
Yes.
In reaching further than we could grasp, right? In trying something and not hitting the target. If we're succeeding every day, we are playing it far too safe.
Hmm. Angelo has another question that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to managing teams, how do you kind of feel out what areas lack and what kind of works on its own? I find that sometimes when I let my departments work on their own, they become extremely self sufficient, and sometimes they need a very big push. Is there a good rule of thumb for kickstarting a group or to get the train moving?
I think that's a. I'm
Thinker.
resisting my urge to talk about having a producer again.
So true. Yeah. Yes. You do need to have like a team leader. That hierarchy is very important. I've also seen it in some more volunteer uh, people or groups where they're like, oh, everyone's equal. We all, are equal contributors. There's no like boss or whatever. And I think hierarchy is very important. You need someone to manage people, but also, who do I come to when I have questions or if I'm struggling? And if there is no one to go to, then how are they supposed to improve? And so when it's also about knowing your team well. My team is very, very tight knit, very close. We talk often. We have weekly meetings with everyone, and that is important to me. I think is one of the main reasons we are so tight knit. We all like each other. We're all friends. And so, yeah, knowing your team is important to know if they can be self sufficient. having a producer, which he says I do have one, I swear. That's also kind of their job is to keep up with those teams if they are being self-sufficient, to keep up with them, and if they're not, it's also their job and your job as the leader to figure out what is going on wrong and what supports they need.
Yeah, I'm gonna, especially since it's going on 4 o'clock now. I'm going to call out that other attachment. I want to encourage folks to use this with your teams. It's an activity called the Best of Us, and I think what it really ultimately does, I used the word permission earlier. It gives us permission to slow down and talk about how we work effectively together. And so this is a tool that you can literally just have people fill it out and then have a conversation about it, right? So it's you finish these prompts. You get the best of me when. What does that look like for you? What does it look like when you're at your best? And if one team is saying, "Hey, we really love autonomy," and that's coming across as a theme from the folks on this part of the team. Autonomy is great. We're big self-starters. We love that. And another team is saying, "Oh, I really like to have structure and direction." Cool. I just learned something really valuable about how to engage these two parts of my team, right? And what they're going to need to move forward effectively. And this is on the individual level and the team level. You can start to tease this stuff out. This is a great place. Like, these are nice questions to ask, as long as you give space to give really sincere answers, right? Where it's like, what really is going to motivate you? What's going to drain you? You get the worst of me when, right? Let's be honest about it, because I don't want to inadvertently get the worst of you by doing the things that are on that list, right? But we can just talk about this stuff, get it out there, and then you don't have to guess. You don't have to ever, speculate about what this person or this team needs because they've told you.
Kind of an example of how I would approach this kind of conversation. Say I have a team who says they are best with low overhead. They're good at doing things kind of on their own. Okay, great. Let them go do that. Try that out. See how that works. If you come back and you say you think that the goals are not being met, normally I think a lot of leaders would be like, well, that didn't work. Let's go back to going over their shoulder and making sure they're on task all the time. Whereas instead, I think I would be like, hey team, we tried out this, low oversight idea that you wanted. You said that this worked best for you. I am finding that we're not quite getting there. So what exactly is happening? What supports did you not have? Or what were the slowdowns, so that I can help support you while also allowing you that space still? And give that conversation several rounds to figure out what exactly is going wrong, so that you can work with their preference, but in a way that you're still meeting the goals.
Yeah, for sure. And having the courage to address it right away, right? Because the longer you wait, the longer whatever's happening becomes normalized, the harder it is then to change that and to address, why are you bringing up this thing? We started this 3 months ago. Why are you just saying this now, right? Like, that's a very frustrating place to be. So if you have if you can create a culture where feedback in all directions is just a normal part of how we operate, and it's always okay to ask questions and to say, hey, I don't think this is really working. What can we do to adapt to make sure you're getting what you need and I'm getting what we need, right? And we're all getting that. That's the kind of place you want to be in, because stuff's going to change, right? As you move along and get to different kind of milestones within the project, or encounter new things that are happening in the world, or whatever's going on. Like, circumstances will change, and if we're not in a place where we can talk it through each time, um, it's just a recipe for problems and having more struggle down the line. Does that make sense? I feel like I lost my okay.
Also, just in
Cool.
chat really quick, Angelo, when Haley says retro, she means retroactive. It's just like a conversation after like a milestone or a deadline about, hey, how did that go before that? Retroactive after this fact. Retrospective, sorry, same thing. Yeah, after the fact, just talking about what happened. Yeah. So also one thing as a game dev, And again, my goals for my game were very different than a lot of people, where again, financial success was not our main priority. And so that changes a lot of things, the goal that you have for the game. But what I've found is when it comes to deadlines, obviously they exist, right? Obviously they exist. We have goals for that deadline. We want these things implemented by this deadline. And I feel like a lot of teams get hung up on, we have to have these things done by this deadline. And for me, it's more like, okay, this deadline exists. What can we get done by that deadline? And so it's less about, hey, you're way behind on this one thing and it's due in 2 weeks, and more of like, hey, we're way behind on this thing. Looks like it's not going to be in this update. We'll push it. Kind of like what I think Haley was saying, where it's, okay, it's not going to make it. How can we kind of reorder things? And hopefully they have the motivation and the passion to get that stuff done for the deadline, for the goals. But I think it's less about, hey, these individual things need to get done, and more of, hey, this is what's happening on this date. Let's see what we can get done by that point.
I like that.
Yeah, that's
I
just
think
a
that's a
specific game dev thing. Okay. All right. Yeah, we only have like 8 minutes left, so I don't know, Mike. What do you have more things you want to say specifically, or do you want questions or what?
questions are great. And I'll say this also. I realize, the kind of awkwardness of me not being able to read the chat
It's been fine. I've
and
been doing a
whatnot.
great job of
You have
saying
been doing a
whatever.
phenomenal job. Um, I do want to maybe just make the offer now. I know I already said it, but we can absolutely, if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, a lot of these conversations are easier to have in a one-on-one space because people's situations are unique. I am more than happy to connect with anybody and help you talk through stuff if
Mike is
there's
great.
things that would be valuable. But otherwise, in the time we've got remaining, yeah, if there's any questions,
Yeah.
comments,
Something
concerns.
I've loved and you haven't been able to see, Mike, in chat is people are responding to other people and helping them out with their own experiences. And
Love
that's
that.
exactly what I want the program to do. So I'm more than happy to bring amazing people like Mike in to talk about these things. But also, like, you guys are experts of your own experiences. And so, share those experiences. We want to learn. One of my whole thing with networking, my whole mindset with networking and why I think I'm good at it is I am interested in everyone's opinions and everyone's experiences because they're never going to be the same as mine. And so I can always learn something from someone, even if I've talked to a producer a million times. Every new producer is going to bring something new to the table for me to learn from. And so it's the same thing with all of you guys. You guys may be doing similar things or even the same thing, but you have approached it differently and different things have happened. And so I really want you guys to be talking with each other and asking questions and supporting each other like this. We are going to be doing a lot more like networking events within the partner program soon. So hopefully we'll have those that you guys can show up to. But yeah, this is exactly what the program is supposed to be.
Yay.
Angelo says thank you, Mike.
Any questions? Thank you.
But yeah, if you have specific questions, like, please let us know. Again, this is recorded unless I've somehow messed up the recording. Hopefully I haven't. It's recorded. It'll be on YouTube. Hopefully later tonight, and then I'll email it out maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I'm moving to New Zealand soon, so I got a lot going on. But oh yeah, if there are no other questions, I'd like to know about your leadership journey, Mike. Wow, what a good question, Nathan.
Oh.
How did you get here?
Leadership journey.
I don't think I even know
How did it
that.
get to this point? I'll try to make this quick. So my background is also in education. I worked in higher education for many years.
Teacher's man.
I was working at UC Irvine, running new student orientation programs and student leadership programs there. So I've been doing similar types of work, but specifically with college students for a long time, and fell in love with helping to unlock other people's potential, I guess is the short way to say that. I truly loved so much, nothing more than being able to connect with somebody or a group of somebody's and helping them see something that they didn't see, right? Especially something within themselves, helping to unlock that thing that maybe they doubted or didn't realize, hey, they're actually really good at something that they weren't seeing. That to me is the best thing in the world, is as unlocking potential. So I did that in higher ed. I kind of bounced around. I had a moment in higher ed. I loved my job so much, but I had this moment we don't have time to get into all of it, but where I realized it was time for me to move on, and that's when I decided that gaming, video games, was the space that I wanted to work with. It was a space I cared a lot about. I'm a I'm a huge um, I believe that one of the things that makes us human is the fact that we tell stories, and and games are the most immersive storytelling medium that there is, in my opinion. And it's something that I think can change us and to make us better people potentially. And so, getting to work in that space with creative, awesome people and help them achieve more than they thought they could achieve is what I love to get up to.
Love that. Love that. We're so
Because of
happy to
that.
have you. I want to bring Alito up. I know you put your hand back down, but I want to give you another shot to come up. So I'm going to invite you to speak. And hopefully it works this time.
Okay, can you hear
Hello.
me?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Ayla.
Of
Thank you,
course.
Mike. Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to give my little advice on the thing that I heard that the team is unmotivated and everything. And in my opinion, I've been a salesman since I was 11, and I've always liked commission. Commission is where the money is. It's not a salary. It's where your money is. And the truth is, the team needs to understand when they do a volunteering, they're not doing volunteering for free. They're doing rev share. And we spoke about this a
Yeah.
lot. They need to understand that if everything works, and there's a chance that it works, small, but there is, they are going to be successful. Most startups, and I like to see each game as a startup, the startups are like that. The first comers don't get paid as much, but they get stock options and they become millionaires once the startup is successful. Not every startup is successful though, and not every game is successful. But if the team doesn't understand that that's what their goal is, to make a successful game, and they're just doing it because they need to work, it is not going to work for any team because there is motivations when things are going right, and a lot of times are going not so good, and they get unmotivated, and that's not a reason to quit. And that's and it's in every industry. I've been in many industries, and it's like that. Not just, but the thing is that we are in an artistic type of environment, and people are used to having that umbrella of a salary to get paid and this is not what we're doing here.
Yeah.
What we're doing here, we're being owners of IPs and successful stories. And also, if the team doesn't like the story, it's not going to work, in my opinion. That's my humble opinion.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I mean, I think that's where like the passion comes in, right? The game is not going to do well if the people working on it are not passionate. And we're in a very unique area of the volunteer work where we have to provide them with something that is not money. And in some ways, like in mine and in yours, Alito, we're doing rev share, but in my game at least, we're not actually making any real money off of that rev share. It was just kind of a bonus to what we already wanted to do, which was that portfolio project. And so rev share, I highly recommend rev share to the partners in the program, but not everyone has that. Again, I'm not going to tell you how to run your business, but yeah, I think it's a unique kind of situation that we're in to have this type of situation with volunteer work, and then we have to figure out how to motivate people outside of the traditional means of salaries. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add to that actually a lot of the research shows that salaries are not all that motivating, right? As long as you're getting paid fairly. If you're getting paid unfairly, they motivate in the opposite direction. But if you're getting paid fairly, it's usually not that's motivating people. It's something else. It is the passion for the project or something like that. But I think great points from Alito that knowing what that end goal is, right? Being very crystal clear about where we're going and why we're going there, and reiterating that in the hard times and helping folks to see, we might be in a dark tunnel right now, but there's a light and that the
Definitely.
light is X, whatever X was defined as, right? I will, this feels kind of random to just tack on at the last moment, which we're, I guess, a
No
minute
worries.
over. But something certainly to think about that you Paul have probably talked about before. Are you all coming together to build a game or to build a game studio? Because those are different things, right?
Yeah.
And if you come together to build a game and you what you really wanted was to build a studio, there's some things that you're probably not thinking about that you need to be thinking about of what happens after launch, right? What happens to what's next? So there are questions that folks should be asking themselves if it's more than a one-off
that's
that we
super
don't
interesting.
obviously have time to get into at the last minute.
Yeah, that is super interesting because for me, my goal now is to build the studio, and Plantasia has served as a great portfolio project for the studio. But at the beginning, when I onboarded all my team members, that wasn't a goal at all. I didn't even consider being a studio, and so the goal of the game was the game, right? To have that, and I feel like I've done an okay job at separating those goals out so that those on the team are just for the game. But like I said, I still have my team members being like, when's the next game? Plantasia 2. And I have to be like, please hold on. Like, please wait. I don't know. So that is an interesting thing to think about, because we do have people in here who are co-founders, where they have co-founders, and so they are building a studio.
Yeah.
But then we also have people who are just here for one portfolio project. So yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for being here and being so active in the chat. That was awesome. Thank you so much. And obviously, thank you, Mike, for being here. I love you so much. Thank you. You are the best. And yeah, connect with him on LinkedIn. We are getting hearts and waves, and this was great. Thank you so much in the chat. So I think this was a super good success. Again, this will be on YouTube. I will email out the thing later. But yeah, thank you so much, Mike, for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you for reaching out to
thank
me,
you
because
for
I
having
probably
me.
would have reached out to you eventually, but yeah.
I'm so excited about what you're doing, and that I'm speaking to everybody here because you're all part of it, but Ayla obviously leading the way. So thank you all so much. And I'm just going to reiterate it genuinely, more than happy to connect, and sometimes it just helps to have somebody to talk through stuff with, and I'm more than happy to play that role
Thank
if
you.
that is helpful to you. So we can chat.
Yes, please do that,
All
because
right.
I'm going to be out of commission for like 2 months. So, leadership questions, send them to Mike, because I won't be around. Okay, thank you,
All
everybody.
right.